That was pretty good. I look like Charlie Brown today. Howdy.
Hey,
Hey.
what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Couch, a podcast by the Office of Spiritual Life. I'm Nathan,
I'm Avery.
and this is our amazing guest and new worship/production coordinator for the Office of Spiritual Life, Mace Ratliff.
What's up, guys? Super excited to be here.
We decided who better than our first guest be our newest member who is full-time in this office. We are so pumped that Mace has joined our team. And so he's going to tell us a little about his story, what he's doing on campus, and give you guys some encouragement today. Boom.
Boom.
We're excited.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything today.
Easy tasks.
Easy task. Easy money today.
No
So-
hard questions, please.
No.
So, first question.
Okay.
What is the worst thing you've ever done in your whole life?
Not our first question.
No, it's not really. Our first question really is, Mace, where did you grow up, and what were you involved with? What were you involved in during your time at ACU?
Yeah. So I grew up in Garland, Texas,
Okay.
just outside of Dallas for my Dallas people. Shout out. I went to public school, so private school is a different little change of pace coming out here to ACU. Grew up heavily in music and in a Christian home. I got involved in worship ministry, worship music when I was about probably 12 years old, I want to say. Started leading worship, singing wise, and leading like teams when I was 15, and playing in bands since I was 12. And so been involved in the worship scene for a while. In my time at ACU, we'll kind of just cut it short there. In my time at ACU, I majored in youth and family ministries with a minor in leadership studies. And I was involved in chapel worship probably like my first 2 years of college. And then guys, college is expensive. So
Tis.
I had to just work a little bit extra. And so in my time at ACU, I actually cut hair. Shout out the bearded barber.
Oh.
Shout
For
out
those
the
who
bearded barber. Wow.
for those who know, they know. And all those maybe cuts back in the college days. And so I cut hair. I was a student worship leader at Radiant Life Church. And I also worked for a AVL company called Big Picture AVL. And so I did tech installs kind of all over West Texas.
Yeah, what is AVL for our listeners who don't know what that is?
Yeah, that is audio, visual, and lighting.
I didn't know what that was.
The more you know.
The more you know,
The more you know.
the better you are. than other people.
Were you involved in any student orgs here?
Yes. I was a part of the fraternity, Nu Kappa Psi. I was trying to think of other organizations I was a part of, but that's the only like prominent one that's coming to my mind is Nu Kappa Psi. So shout out my Noble Kings brothers. Shout out them for hosting chapel.
Host
Yes.
team.
Day one
Yes.
host team.
So good. They did so good.
They set the standard.
They did.
Super high. So proud NKP rep right here.
Hey, and guess what? If you and your organization want to host chapel, reach out to us at chapel@acu.edu. Shameless plug moment.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle plug. That was good.
You also volunteered with Midnight some.
Yes.
Midnight worship.
Yeah. I did some with Midnight, and man, I feel like there were some other ones, but those are like
The mains.
the main ones that come to mind.
Fun story about Mace. He was often the person when I was a student worker in this office, when I needed someone to do worship. First person always come to my mind was Mace, but because Mace is someone who respects his own time, he often said, "No, I will not be doing this last minute," because he appreciates himself.
Yeah,
Boundaries. And that's on boundaries.
I did say no quite a few times, but however, I was working 3 jobs.
Yeah,
and
no's not a
so,
bad word.
For those of you who struggle with saying no and you want to learn how, come find me downstairs
In the
in
dungeon.
Spiritual Life office, and I'll help you learn how to say no.
I'm so glad. Mace, it actually really is just such a cool God story how Mace ended up here. And I want to tie that into you being involved in worship growing up. When we were talking about how what part of what this office was lacking was someone full-time over our chapel experience. It's happening every day of the week. It's an 1,000-person event across multiple locations with Moody and Boone, etc. And so I was talking to Mace's older brother. Mace did not live here at the time. And we were explaining what kind of person we really needed to like knock out this job. And I was like, basically, we need your brother if he lived here. And his brother looked at me and said, my Mace is moving back to Abilene like this year in a couple months. And so it just, I mean, the Lord orchestrated it perfectly, in my opinion, which is really awesome.
Yeah, shout out the Lord, but also shout out my wife for having
Mhm.
another year of college, and so that definitely helped some
It
as
did.
well.
Okay, so I'm adding a question here that we didn't talk about. Oof. I
Oh,
know.
Off
Gosh,
script.
I'm the worst. You have been heavily involved in worship from a young age. What was it about worship with your upbringing, specifically just with instruments, that made you feel connected to God? What was that for you back then?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I actually was Church of Christ till I was like 11 or 12. But I always loved instruments. I've been playing drums since I was 9, and like always just like was humming music around the house. Loved talking music with like my dad, and so music was already heavily involved. And it wasn't until man, there's like probably a lot deeper parts of my story and how we got there. But when we kind of transitioned into instrumental worship outside of that church, and we started kind of a nonprofit called The Point, which is
Mm.
no longer existent, but it was great and very formative for my spiritual walk. And my dad was like, hey, you play drums. Your older brother also plays drums. And I need someone to play bass. So can you play bass? And so I just started playing bass for my dad. Funny enough, I played bass with my dad in his old college band
Cool.
in high school. So that kind of helped me get better at bass.
Mm.
And from there, I started serving at a youth group in the area on Wednesday nights and getting involved playing drums and playing bass. And I loved it, but I was still young. I was still like heavily just kind of in my sin, but that's where I definitely felt the most kind of whole.
Mm.
And then I was 15 when I led worship for the first time. Been playing guitar for like maybe a month or two, and I just overheard them say, hey, we don't have anyone to lead this next week. And I was like, I'm like in a completely different conversation. And so I just turned around, I was like, hey, I'll do it.
Mm.
And from then on, it was just like an immense amount of just closeness to the Lord, but also just an immense amount of peace,
Mm.
immense amount of purpose. I felt like that was just where I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to do music, but I didn't know what that wanted to look like. I definitely didn't want to be in band anymore in school. And so like music education was not like the route for me. And so I was like,
Mm.
okay, what is it going to look like for me to still do music, which I love and the Lord has gifted me in, but how can I utilize that moving forward? And so from 15 on, I just was like, okay, I'm going to be involved in worship ministry. And funny enough, my senior year of high school, every opportunity I had to lead worship was kind of all went away in
Mm.
about the span of a month. And so at that time, you know, you're young. I was just a new believer a few months before then, where I finally like committed my life to Christ and was like, I'm all in. And in like a 3 month span of time, I had every opportunity that I was leading worship or serving, playing on the team or whatever it was just like stripped away from me. And I definitely at that time questioned, as I'm about to go into college here at
Mm.
ACU, was like, okay, what am I actually supposed to do then if this is all gone? And man, the Lord just has greater plans. ended up leading a couple worship nights that me and some friends put together. And we just asked people, hey, we have no money, but can we use your space to do a worship night? And we would ask people like, hey, we want to provide food. Do any of y'all have food that we can provide? And I think the first time we had like hot dogs and like chips or something, and did a worship night in my old karate dojo.
Team ship?
Mm.
Okay.
But shout out Calico Warriors.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so we did it there, and the next one was at like a church that actually let us do it there. And so it was kind of confirmation that even though like your plans might like look differently, the Lord's plan is always greater, and He's always working on something
Yeah.
and providing opportunities elsewhere. And so that kind of sent me off into college. I was comfortable going to different churches and going to church by myself because like my family and I, all those opportunities got taken away in the span of a month. And so we were all church hopping, trying to find a home. And I was just like taking friends from high school to church and like, hey, let's go to church. And like, I didn't have a church for like the first time in a while.
Mm.
And so when I got to college, it was easy to
Yeah, be
just go to church
flexible.
by myself and see what there was out there.
Yeah.
That's kind of answers the question.
It
right?
does. And that's what I just love about Jesus. Just specifically with spiritual giftedness. And I feel like a lot of us or in our college years are kind of like, what does the Lord have for me? What can I contribute to the world? And I love that we serve a God that like knows us so intentionally and wants us to enjoy the ways that we serve.
Yeah.
That like you using the words peace and whole about something you love so much.
Yeah.
Making you realize your purpose was to serve with a gift that you had. Like the Lord just kind enough to allow us to serve in those ways, and that connected you to family, that connected you to church. I feel like that's kind of the discernment we get to use when we're like, where do I really kind of find my place? Like, where do I fit? Is like, where do you feel peace and whole and joy? How does it contribute to the people around you in good ways? And what are you being affirmed in? What are the doors that are opening and stuff like that? And where do you still trust when the door closes? Like you knew you had that gift.
yeah.
You knew that you could serve people in that way and you remained faithful in it. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, speaking of doors closing and opening,
All right.
a door just opened here, and you came in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
now you're our worship
Great
and
segue.
chapel.
Yeah, that was fantastic,
coordinator.
Nathan.
Yeah.
I just want
I've been
I want to
told.
champion that right now. That was really good.
Well, okay. Well, what is it that you do?
Why are you here, dude?
Yeah. What the heck are you doing here?
So I am the new worship and production coordinator for the Spiritual Life office, or the Office of Spiritual Life, OSL.
Also, if you will.
Yeah. So follow us on Instagram.
Yep.
Um,
You see spiritual life.
if you want to see more of the podcast, you want to see more of what we're doing, got a lot of big plans coming up.
We do.
In short, my role is to work alongside the both of you, our campus ministers, and help kind of push chapel along from the place that it's been, where even us as students would probably recognize was not our favorite place to be of the week, and create it into a space where students can encounter the Lord. Students can be encouraged and filled up throughout their day. I mean, we live in a world that's constantly beating down on us,
Mm-hmm.
and we have such a good opportunity to have 30 minutes to just pause, to rest, to worship, to be encouraged, to be filled up. And my job's to come in and help enhance the overall production value of chapel,
Mm-hmm.
and what worship looks like and what the flow looks like, so we can get students out on time,
Mm-hmm.
and value and respect their time. Because, man, I just believe that the Holy Spirit is at a greater work than in those 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And so how can we respect the time of our students better? And yeah, just bring a better experience that we all want to be at and all enjoy.
Yeah. And I think this is part of us living out when we say we value your spiritual formation. it means we also have to be really intentional and diligent in the spaces we're asking you to show up that are required to an extent. And so like Mace is the embodied personhood of that commitment as we're growing our team and creating more creative and elevated chapel experiences. Is like, we hope that you see that and feel affirmed in that we care about the spaces we're asking you to show up in, and hope you come. They're going to be great.
And not just what we're saying or what we're singing in those spaces, but
Yes.
about the spaces themselves,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that's something I'm really excited about Mace being here, is he just has this eye for this can be better, this can be better, this can be better, while not dogging on the way that we've been doing things, but in saying, I see how much more this could be.
Yeah, you're a visionary, executor.
Yeah.
Not executioner.
Judge, jury, and executioner.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's funny.
And on that note, like, I would love to know. I don't know, until Sing Song, I didn't know what a note was, like a music note. Like, I don't know crap about music and production. I want to know, like, how do you see the Lord's faithfulness in your line of work?
Yeah. There's so many factors in how we can create a space to be like warm, welcoming, a space that brings down people's walls, a space that provides comfortability, to be more comfortable, as Nathan would say, since comfortability is not a word.
Clearly.
Not a word.
It should be a word.
And a space to be comfortable, but also a space to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because just in the uncomfortable times is where you grow the most. And so we want students to grow, but also to be comfortable in that space. And so I think the faithfulness of the Lord shows up in, there are like a long list of different ways that he can show up in this line of work, whether it's a conversation with a worship leader about how we can be better leaders off platform. And something that I like to tell worship leaders is you can be a worship leader even if you can't sing. And a lot of people look at me funny and are like, that's not possible. And when I look at the amount of students that I worked with in this last year, and I look at even my wife, who I always tell her, like, she is such a good worship leader for her friends, because right in her seat where she's setting an example for what it looks like to worship. And so there's faithfulness of the Lord there, and conversations with empowering people who feel like they might not be able to sing, that they should sing and that they can sing. And then there's the faithfulness of the Lord, even in simple things like lights. Lights make a difference. We all know that the big white industrial lights are nobody's favorite.
Yep.
And so, again, it goes back to making a space more comfortable, more welcoming. And it just helps us all focus better and focus on what we're there for. And that's simply just to name a few kind of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But
No, they're good.
yeah, that's kind of just a couple.
Yeah. There's intricacies in the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And it's not a Mace is going to come in and day one. I mean, we've already had day one. You know, day one's going to be a whole new thing. Although Mace has already brought this energy
Yes.
that has changed the way that we're doing things.
Yeah, were y'all at Praise Day this past Friday? First week of school? It was a great Praise Day.
Great praise day.
Free t-shirts.
Free
t-shirts.
free t-shirts
Free
were
t-shirts.
thrown.
I was
Overalls
singing
were worn.
crazy. It was that tenor that was up there.
I was spinning
was
around.
Solid.
It was great. Yeah.
So, Mace, as we're closing out today, I want to know if you have any advice or encouragement to give to students.
I have like several things that, again, please come down to my office. Would love to talk to you. Number one is going to be to remember that your calling is to simply be a faithful, humble follower of Jesus Christ. And to trust in the Lord. Like that's everybody's calling.
Yeah.
And so when you get confused about the phrasing of like, what am I called to do? It's simply that. And so when you get stressed out with class and wondering if you want to change your major or not, or wondering if you're in the right career path, your calling is just to trust in the Lord,
Yeah.
to faithfully pursue Him. And believe me, He is going to work it out. If I had kind of stuck with the idea of what I thought I was going to do and what my calling was just like, oh, I'm just going to like lead worship. Well, the reality is I don't lead worship every day.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this role, that's not the main part of my role. And so if I stay so fixated on my calling is to lead worship, when I am 18 years old and leading worship is taken away from me, I fall into a place of like doubting
Yeah.
whether or not I have purpose, whether or not I'm supposed to be there. But when I stay fixed on I'm to follow Jesus and to trust in Him, then when those times come and those opportunities are taken away or there's a different door open, I'm able to be obedient and to step into that door. And that's what's led both me and my wife here. That's what's led us to where, yeah, there's many places we'd like to be, but the Lord has called us here. And so I'm going to bring my energy here. As like this office would tell you, like I'm fired up about this job and fired up about what we're doing in this office. And so be obedient to the calling, which is to trust in the Lord. And that would be my number one. Just encouragement and advice for college, because college is a season of change, a season of experiencing so many different things. And so what's going to be the most consistent thing is reminding yourself that the Lord is good and He is worthy of your praise and He is worthy to be trusted. And so
I love that. That's
Yeah.
a word.
that's what I would say.
That's so true. It's not about what you're doing. It's about how you're doing it with humility, with faithfulness,
Yeah.
and trust.
I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way to end.
It's a great way to end. Y'all, thank you so much for watching this video or listening to this if you're listening to it on Spotify. We're going to keep putting out what we think is great content for you guys. Whether or not you think it is, we're going to keep doing it and getting better.
Yes, getting better. Yes.
So if you have any comments, put them in there. Dang it. That was so stupid. Put them down there
Yeah.
in the
Comment
comment
below.
section.
Like, comment, I guess
Subscribe.
subscribe if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
And also follow our Instagram. Come down to our office. We're in the dungeon.
Which is the lower level
Of the campus center. That's a good clarification. And we hope to see you on our next episode where we'll be interviewing another speaker. You're not a speaker, but chapel speaker's coming soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank y'all.
Bye.